Hello, my name is Asha Samput and welcome to this new edition of Business Africa, your magazine dedicated to the continent's business and economic news. And as usual, you can win $150 in our Business Africa game. More details later, but first, today's top stories. The Francophone University Agency supports scientific Francophonie, a new innovative concept to bring universities and scientific research closer to the business world.
There is an increasingly strong support from several countries in the French-speaking world or in the Francophile space to work together towards a common scientific framework.
River blindness almost eradicated in Cameroon, and it is also thanks to the African scientific contribution.
We're on the right track. I think Cameroon can achieve its goals and that by 2025 we expect to have eradicated onchocerciasis.
Focusing on local while capturing the informal population. These are the priorities of African insurers to increase their market share.
Market penetration in our countries is still very low, at 1 to 2%. There is plenty of scope for insurance, with a lot of property and goods still not covered.
The Francophonie is in the spotlight. Bucharest was the scene of a long-awaited international meeting. The AUF, the Francophone University Agency, chose the Romanian capital last month to bring together 35 ministers of higher education and celebrate its 60th anniversary while launching a new ambitious exercise, the Première Assise de la Francophonie scientifique. Our journalists Laurent Soustras and Lionel Cauchois attended this first edition.
A highly anticipated face-to-face meeting hosted by the AUF, gathering ministers of higher education, scientific, economic and institutional experts, as well as high-level French-speaking students, took place in Bucharest. The Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie, the AUF, which lists more than 1,000 member universities and research institutions, is today the leading university network in the world. On the occasion of its 60th anniversary, it is refining its objective of better promoting the excellent know-how of French-speaking universities and their added value in the world of business and the economy.
There is an increasingly strong support from several countries in the French-speaking world or in the Francophile space to work together towards a common scientific framework. We launched the first of this kind of meetings to provide content for the scientific Francophonie because it is a unifying concept.
These Premières Assises de la Francophonie scientifique agreed on 10 thematic workshops built around strategic priorities resulting from a global consultation carried out by the AUF last year. 15,000 responses from 75 countries allowed to draw up a white paper and define the major pillars of the agency's strategy for the next 5 years.
These pillars are essentially the internationalization of universities, networking, partnership, employability and entrepreneurship. And it has emerged as a big challenge for most of the countries of the South today. Because for years we dreamed of having more skill sets, we dreamed of having more young people in university. And finally, Africa, for example, has made enormous efforts for 15, 20 years to have more young people in higher education. The paradox is that at the end of these years of efforts we find ourselves with an unemployment rate of graduates even higher because we have not been able to manage massification, because quality has not necessarily kept up with quantity.
Today, who can better emerge from this paradox than the elite of the French-speaking students on the continent? Students who are looking to broaden their horizons and undertake research at an international level. Like Katia Ghazali, for example, this Algerian doctoral student is the beneficiary of a grant funded by the AUF to finalize her research on industrial wastewater treatment in Romania. I was very happy, of course, because I could carry out my research in Romania and mainly advance my research to be published and even write articles which will help me to advance my research thesis. Same determination for Crespin, born in Tanzania in a refugee camp in Burundi, and now a student at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. He won the 60 Seconds to Convince contest organized by the AUF.
I thought of something. Imagine producing biogas from leftover feed or cow dung. I did the research and everything about this project and realized that it is possible. I even started to build the prototype. So we can use cow dung or leftover food. We can turn it into biogas, and after purification we can use the biogas to generate electricity or even use the biogas to cook. And also, it's something which is very good for the protection of the environment, because in Burundi, many use firewood as a source of energy. So we could transform that and use biogas instead. It would help protect the environment. It would also represent a change for my community to have electricity, where before there was none.
Some 30 ministers of higher education present in Bucharest, with more than half of them in person, have understood the close link between these students and the development of the countries of the South. For the Republic of the Congo, it is a question of ensuring that beyond fundamental research, that this research is actually applied, that it enables us to face the various development challenges confronted by my country. And that is why the current National Development Programme is essentially based on research, particularly in the field of agriculture. These priorities will have to adapt to the very contrasting situation in African countries, which for some implies rapid use of digital tools.
Today in Mali we are faced with the problem of the security crisis and also of COVID. And consequently we have tried to work a lot on the development of digital education. Thanks to the Bamako Digital Campus, our young people are in contact with the entire scientific community of the French-speaking world. In terms of training offers, access to scientific documentation, I think it's a precious tool that we have, and which is of great use for our students.
Focusing on digital technology, but also on the South-South university relationships, are important development levers for African universities. Egypt and its 18 AUF member universities are already very committed to this partnership.
Inviting French-speaking students from different African continents to join important programs and training programs and postgraduate programs, and going back to our African continent, being there and important in different fields.
Scientific diplomacy should also encourage the place of women, as recalled by the representative of the Republic of Congo. For us, above all, it will be a question of establishing positive discrimination in favor of young girls. Young girls who are generally not interested in science will have to set up a series of measures that we can adopt to make sure that science does not have a gender-based connotation, and that young girls who are just as talented as young boys can really get involved in science. In the meantime, a Bucharest manifesto to lay the foundations for this international dialogue on the future of young people is being drafted. The objective is to integrate it as a contribution from the French-speaking ministers of higher education to the documents that will be handed over to the heads of state during the Francophonie summit in Djerba next year.
This is another nearly $2 billion boost to African port infrastructure. Dubai-based operator DP World and UK development financier CDC have formed a partnership to expand the ports of Dakar in Senegal and Ain Sokhna in Egypt, as well as to improve logistics at the port of Berbera in Somaliland. These investments are intended to boost trade to countries without access to the sea, notably Mali and Ethiopia. A breakthrough for science, child health and the fight against malaria. It is in these terms that the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, welcomed the recommendation of his organization to deploy an anti-malarial vaccine on a massive scale for children in risk areas. Sub-Saharan Africa should be the first to benefit from this new RTSS vaccine manufactured by the British firm GSK, which should reduce malaria in its severe form by 30%. The Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, and other development actors are currently studying the question of its funding. And the question of the promotion of African scientific know-how in medical treatments is put on the table. Example here in Cameroon, where onchocerciasis, also known as river blindness, is being eliminated. Mectizan, the treatment for the disease, eventually paid off. But to get there, it took the contribution of research at the local level, the commitment of public authorities, and above all, an extraordinary discovery, the secrets of a successful fight against the disease that has long been a brake on development. This is a report by Abubakar Siddiq Munchali, our correspondent in Cameroon.
Registered in Cameroon as a national public health problem, onchocerciasis, also called river blindness, is in the process of disappearing in the country. Onchocerciasis is an eye infection, a parasitic disease caused by a worm and transmitted by the bite of a black fly.
There are few areas where it's been diagnosed, just in the central and coastal regions where epidemiological tests have shown rates to be higher than average.
Slightly high prevalence, which remains, just like there's still onchocerciasis today in Cameroon, the memory of a painful past, of a disease that has wreaked havoc and decimated populations.
The endemic cluster of onchocerciasis was widespread in places such as Bafia, Bayomen, Kiki, Engoboba, and Esure. There were young girls whose skin had been ravaged by the disease, and young men who had been disfigured with what's known as leopard skin on their limbs. In Mbam, some victims had been blinded, and 2 or 3 children suffering from epilepsy as a result of being infected. In most cases, it seems that the families of the children were unaware that the disease was still posing a risk today. I had these lumps sticking out of my body. At the hospital, the head doctor said it was obviously a case of onchocerciasis, and they operated on me. I can show you the scars.
After the experiences of many years of aerial dropping of insecticides along streams and rivers in endemic areas to kill the causative agents of the pathology, the fight on the field has been revolutionized with the arrival of community-based treatment with ivermectin. This new approach, less expensive than the first, implemented through many initiated projects, has been set since several years in Cameroon within the framework of the African Programme to fight against onchocerciasis, thanks to the determination of the public authorities and a pool of well-engaged actors.
We're lucky in Cameroon that we are helped by NGDOs. There are 4 in the country now: HKI, Perspectives, IEF, and Sightsavers. They all work with us, and there's MDP in the United States that has provided us drugs worth 20 billion francs for free.
Ivermectin, known as Mectizan, taken as a single oral dose given free of charge, is effective. But in some areas of the country, the effect of the drug on some patients has turned out to be rather dramatic.
We've seen patients with very severe headaches, muscle pain, severe joint pains that could keep the patient bedridden for a week or more. The victim is immobilized and in some cases lapsed into a coma after being treated, although we weren't sure why this occurred.
This is what prompted this Cameroonian researcher and his team from the African Center for Research on Filariasis and other tropical diseases to carry out a great deal of research work. The results showed that treatment for river blindness had no chance of success for these patients due to the presence of loa or African eyeworms. This distinct filariasis, when it affects a patient with river blindness, makes ivermectin or mectizan impossible to administer, not without the pain and serious side effects. It could even put carriers of both filariasis in danger of death.
We later discovered these undesired side effects were caused by loa filaria, so we had to see how to avoid these side effects. We tried other drugs to see if they could treat the loiasis and prevent the side effects after treatment with mectizan. But none really worked on the loiasis. Then scientists thought testing for loiasis to identify people with high rates of the disease to stop them being treated with mectizan. This would allow treating the rest of the population safely, without the side effects.
The loascope, a miniaturized microscope coupled with a telephone, has been developed and allows in 3 minutes to determine the parasitic load of loa. With this device, several hundred thousands of people have been tested and then treated in many health districts in Cameroon. This new strategy is presented not only as an effective solution, but very precious in reassuring the populations and dissuading all those who have developed fear about taking mectizan.
We're on the right track. I think Cameroon can achieve its goals, and that by 2025 we expect to have eradicated onchocerciasis. We must continue to educate people and make them aware of the situation through local communities, local mayors and leaders.
Loiasis, present in Cameroon in onchocerciasis endemic areas, is also present in some countries of the Central African sub-region and even in West Africa, according to the African Center for Research on Filariasis and other tropical diseases. Professor Joseph Camino intends, with the help of many partners involved in the fight against onchocerciasis on the African continent, to share this experience, which has worked in Cameroon with other countries. In 2019, WHO estimated the prevalence of onchocerca volvulus infections worldwide at 20 million cases, with more than 99% of infected people living in 31 African countries.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. It is a momentous event for Africa and its diaspora, which is being held at the end of the month in Strasbourg in France. Building Tomorrow, or Construire Demain in French, is the theme of the second edition of the African Diaspora Summit, a great platform for debates, meetings and discovery of the opportunities offered by the African continent, and of which I am very proud to be the patron this year. On the agenda, entrepreneurship, job creation and opportunities, digital green technology, but also topics related to employment and professional integration or project funding in Africa. This summit targets the 3.6 million people from the African diaspora in France, as well as those who simply share the same passion for Africa. I spoke to the founders of the summit, Priska Mbenkoe and Alain Yoger, about what to expect from this 2021 edition. Listen to them. We thought that we would bring innovative content such as green tech. We know that technology today must above all respond to the environmental and social challenges of our world. It will also be an event where you can come for inspiration, to receive and share the experiences of those who have done it before. From those who have gone on this road before us and who have some useful advice for us. The Diaspora Summit is also mostly a business event helping create strong business relationships that are not just profit-oriented but which are based on values and convictions that will build the world that we all want. The African Diaspora Summit is a platform for networking, exchange and collaboration between the African diaspora and its network. It is a platform where we can discuss the challenges of the African continent and the solutions that we can bring as a diaspora with our network to address the challenges that we've identified. The African Diaspora Summit positions itself as a provider of solutions, and it is within this framework that each African Diaspora Summit carries a project. During the first edition, we had identified the need on the territory, our territory in Strasbourg, to have an African house, as one can find in Paris or in Montreal. And on this second edition, what we want to do is to set up a fundraiser, launch a fundraising to support these initiatives, all these projects here, and those aimed at building a strong Africa. Clearly, the month of October is particularly African in France, since two of the exceptional events brought together representatives of the continent and the diaspora. In Paris, the Ambition Africa 2021 business event brought together 1,200 companies, including more than 400 Africans, to take a tour of post-COVID issues with particular emphasis on the need for the continent to seize industrialization opportunities. And of course, Montpellier hosted the France-Africa Summit, which brought together representatives of civil society and the African diaspora around President Emmanuel Macron. A €10 million seed fund to support African startups was announced during the event. The African Development Bank says it is ready to guarantee loans to African companies who want to sell their products on the continent. The idea is to facilitate the inter-African trade, which has been growing since January 1st through the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AFCFTA. The FDB would devote $7 billion to this support over the next 5 years. Afreximbank and the Africa Finance Corporation are also committed to assisting African businesses in this phase of free trade development. And we remain in the financial industry with a sector which is taking off in Africa. The penetration rate of the insurance market is still quite low on the continent, and the first obstacle to its development is, of course, the considerable share of the informal sector. But insurers on the continent intend to reverse the trend by betting on their in-depth knowledge of the local field. Take a look.
Since African nations started gaining their independence in the 60s, the insurance market has taken off. According to the FANAF, the Federation of African National Insurance Companies, founded in 1976, there are now 20 times as many insurance companies, 8,000 employees, and turnover has leapt from $26 million to $700 million.
Our countries had agencies, subsidiaries of major French groups. Now most of them have become national companies with their capital and headquarters based here. I think the FANAF has done a lot to encourage that.
FANAF is indeed the main reason why African insurers have risen to prominence. The Africanization of the continent's insurance companies has seen African executives gradually making their mark in major European companies inherited from the colonial period. In the beginning, it was essential to be able to mobilize capital to finance fledgling African economies.
Les initiateurs
The brains behind the FANAF project were Senegalese, Ivorian, Gabonese and Congolese nationals who are running national insurance companies. These people were getting little or no support from outside their respective countries. They realized that strength lay in unity, and that together they would be a force to be reckoned with.
Their strategy has paid off, but there's still a lot to be done. It is estimated that half of Africa's working population has no insurance.
Market penetration in our countries is still very low, at 1 to 2%. There is plenty of scope for insurance, with a lot of property and goods still not covered.
For over 40 years, the FANAF has been working with its members to develop a sector in upheaval and lobbying lawmakers to change legislation. In the 1980s, the professional association called for an African approach to compensation for personal injuries, for health-related issues, and for victims of road traffic accidents. Member nations also passed laws to make sure rates were better adapted to an insuree's ability to pay.
We will need to attract a lot of savings if we are to have any impact on funding African economies, and to make sure the continent does not depend on the World Bank or the IMF or the West to finance its projects. I'm confident that given the right fiscal framework, the African insurance sector will be able to build capital that can be put to use financing the kind of projects that will make Africa an emerging continent.
The vast potential that lies in as yet uninsured areas is a mouth-watering prospect for the major international groups who see a territory ripe for the picking. To face up to these new challenges, the African insurance sector is reinventing itself and proposing new types of products. The ICT sector is particularly enticing.
One product in particular can be marketed digitally, starting with computers and then on to mobile phones and tablets. The possibilities are almost endless, both in terms of supply and demand. Our clients are increasingly demanding, and there is no time to waste.
Is there an African nation that doesn't dream of emerging nation status? Major infrastructure projects have been launched across the continent, and growth centers are being developed. This growth goes hand in hand with insurance, but the insurers will need a solid foundation to provide complete insurance coverage. Without the right guarantees from African insurers, the continent's builders will look elsewhere to protect their investments.
People have to stick to the rules. I have nothing against certain companies getting involved in Africa's infrastructure development, but some are bending the rules and are not covered properly.
After playing their part in the Africanization of insurance in the post-independence period, the continent's insurers must now beat tough competition from major international companies. With their intimate knowledge of the situation on the continent, Africa's insurers have an ace up their sleeve. Extending insurance coverage to provide protection for rural populations and their harvests, and underwriting the modernization of agriculture could be a game changer.
Well, it's now time to reward our loyal viewers of Business Africa. It's up to you to answer to the following questions. If you're drawn among those who have given the correct answers, you will win $150. This is game number 561, so listen carefully to the two questions that follow, and good luck. First question, what's the AUF, the United Agency of Francophiles, the Francophone University Agency, the University Finance Agency? Second question, what is onchocerciasis? A drug, a bowel disease, an eye infection? You know the answers. You can participate now by going to our website africaonair.com, answer the questions, fill out your form, and good luck. And of course, don't forget to include your contact details, name, address, telephone, email, and the number of the game you are entering with the answers, of course. This game, for example, is game number 561. The winner will receive $150 as our winner this week. Congratulations, you gave the correct answers to our game number 560. Here are the details. First question, what does Red Plus collect? The answer, plastic. Second question, what is the amount of the credit line granted by ICD to BNDE in Senegal? The answer is 12 million euros. That's it, Business Africa is over for today. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel, for a new edition of Initiative Africa. We'll speak to journalist and writer Sidik Abba, who will tell us about the security crisis in the Sahel. In the meantime, you can catch this program again on our website africaonair.com, as well as on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment using the hashtag Business Africa TV show. Take care of yourselves and see you next week. Goodbye.